I got the call 5 years ago on an ordinary evening, just watching a movie with some friends. My uncle Scott Nicely was killed in Iraq while serving in the Army National Guard. He had always been the funny one in the family, the one who could make you smile. He was 48 years old. His wife was my dad's sister, and they had 2 kids that were my age. In the days that followed, my own sister, who was serving in the Air Force overseas, met his body in Germany and accompanied him on the long trip back to the States. He was prepared for burial in Dover, Delaware, and then he and my sister made the trip back to his family and friends in Iowa. At the airport in Iowa, my aunt and cousins met his casket, but they weren't alone. A group of seemingly ordinary citizens, dressed in motorcycle gear, were there, standing in a line, quietly holding American flags. He was taken to the funeral home, where this quiet, motorcycle-clad group had lined the sidewalk to honor him as he and the family arrived. A crowd of more than 700 people attended Scott's funeral in Marshalltown, Iowa, where he had served as a mail carrier and a member of the church's worship team. After the service, 75 soldiers stood at attention as the flag-draped casket was placed in a hearse and a bagpiper played Amazing Grace. Trailing the full military escort was the same group of people, following on motorcycles. The funeral procession included a 240-mile trek from Marshalltown, Iowa, to his hometown in Syracuse, Nebraska, where a family prayer and memorial service were held prior to his burial. I attended this service and held my dad's hand as we left the church. My memories of leaving the church are an emotion-filled blur. Across the street were some people who were yelling and holding signs. I couldn't read the signs or tell what they were chanting because this group of motorcyclists stood on the street between us, revving their engines and waving American flags. My family and I were escorted to a limo to follow the hearse to the cemetery. They took us by Syracuse Elementary School, where they had let out school for a few minutes to honor my uncle. Children were lining the street, waving little American flags. Finally, after a long journey home, my Uncle Scott was laid to rest. I later learned that the group across the street were members of Westboro Baptist Church, a small group of zealots who protest military and celebrity funerals. They believe that every tragedy in the world, including the national debt, the Gulf oil spill, and yes, even my uncle's death, is somehow God's way of punishing our country for its acceptance of homosexuality. Yet, standing between my family and these voices of hate were a group of simple, ordinary people revving their motorcycle engines. This group, who had been by my uncle's side from the time his plane landed in Iowa until his burial, calls himself the Patriot Guard. The Patriots Guard's mission is to attend the funeral services of fallen heroes as invited guests of the family. They have 2 basic objectives. Number 1, to show sincere respect for our fallen heroes, their families, and their communities. And number 2, to shield the mourning family and their friends from interruptions created by protesters, using strictly legal and nonviolent means. I found in my own spiritual life that the Patriot Guard is a strong symbol of our church community. Just as the Patriot Guard accompanied my uncle throughout his long journey home, our church community is a reminder that we are never alone. As we go through our day-to-day lives, our church is quietly there, standing beside us, supporting us, and providing comfort on our many long journeys. When life gets ugly and the voices of fear, guilt, and insecurity threaten our well-being, the voice of the church rises up like the powerful rev of engines, drowning out hate and replacing it with love. Thank you, FCCB, for being the sometimes quiet and, when necessary, loud source of comfort and truth in my life.